So this piece of equipment here is something that we have been after for quite some time, and I'm really surprised it's actually taken us this long to pick something up. I think a lot of it was due to the fact that there's really not a lot that's readily available here in New Zealand until now. What this here is this is from PureWash. So this is the Alto 10, and essentially this is a really compact deioniser system that you can use with your pressure washer to make washing the car, I guess, in the sun, an easier process, and to try and alleviate some of the water spots that you commonly get when using some of the hard water that you typically find in some of these New Zealand, it's not in New Zealand hoses, but just in the water that we have here, in particular in our area. So the Alto 10, meaning that we've got a 10 litre resin tank here. Now this machine, when we actually unhook everything, the way it comes in the box is like so. Now this is pretty compact, it only weighs 10 kilograms, and what you've got here is a couple of hoses. So you've got very short hose here, which we're using to connect the Alto to the pressure washer, and then you've also got a longer hose that they supply as well, which is a great outlet hose if you're using this with, let's say, a hose or trying to clean windows. That gives you a bit of extra reach. Now, pretty simple system. So you've got your inlet on the side here, then you've got your pre-filter. Now this pre-filter is for carbon.
Well, it's a carbon filter, and so that's going to remove sediment such as things like chlorine, volatile organic compounds.
Yeah.
And those are things that are just going to be in that, you know, coming out of your water, and those elements are going to be essentially filtered out in that stage, and then that water will then go into our resin tank.
Feeds into this bit here. We do have a pressure gauge on the top there as well, so we do get a reading as to the pressure coming into the system here. So you go water in, pre-filter, then straight into your resin tank. And what the resin is doing, this is kind of the secret sauce of this machine, where you're eradicating the possibility of getting water spots depending on how.
Well, yeah, so that resin tank is going to remove all the minimal mineral ions from the water, and so that then we're essentially using spot-free or spotless water, which is perfect for when we're washing our cars.
And then what we've got on this side here, so we do have a valve, which we'll show you why it's handy to have that there, but you've got your water outlet. So essentially the way that you're going to hook this up is you're going to go water in, you're going to go water out, you're going to connect it to whatever your machine is. So it could be your pressure washer, could be your hose, and then you've got your valve here to control it. And this builds pressure really quickly as well. So we'll show you how that works once we get it set up. But I think the reason why you want this in the setting that we're in auto detailing is to reduce the possibility of getting water spots, and it opens you up to the ability to wash in this direct sunlight as well. So
that's got 10 litres of resin in there.
It does.
And they estimate roughly between 4,000 and 5,000 litres of water, of spot-free water.
We'd ideally fill these with deionised water as well, because I don't think there's any sense in running deionised water through here and then washing with normal water. So our 150-ish litres takes into account a couple of buckets, and then also the pressure on
that would be for the perfect scenario.
Yeah.
But if you were someone who was going to go and be a bit cautious about how many litres of water you wanted to deionise, then the most crucial step would be when you're rinsing the vehicle for the final time.
Yeah.
But we want to be 100% safe here, and so that's why we do it in everything we use. Even when we're mixing up our chemicals, we're using deionised water.
Especially if you're doing it in direct sunlight. And a hot tip on this as well is that use this water, instead of connecting it to your pressure washer, empty out that tank in your car that you use with the window washer squirters, fill it with deionised water, because that, I think, is probably one of the #1 ways that we see people causing damage in terms of water spots to their cars, because you're using those in the direct sunlight normally trying to clean your windows, and they go all down the sides of your car, leaving water spots everywhere. So that would be our hot take for this machine too. So PureWash send you this here with your Alto 10 as well. So this is a TDS meter, and what this will do is provide a reading of the mineral content that you have in your water. So really easy to use. This is water coming straight out of the tap here, so completely untreated. And this is where you can understand what kind of damage your water could potentially cause to the paintwork on your vehicle. So essentially what you do here is you fill up the cap, pop the cap on there, and then all you need to do is just hit the on button here, and it will give us an instantaneous readout of how many parts per million we have of mineral content in the water here. So we're sitting at about 18 here. We've tested this a few times and it ranges between about 18 and 20. The rule of thumb is that using the deionized system, we should read between 0 and 3. So it should essentially pull all of that out of the water content. Now, your typical taps here in New Zealand are generally going to read between 20 and 100, so to the extremes, depending on what area of the country you're in and how your water's treated before it gets to your inlet. Now, a rating of around 20, so somewhere around 20 is not necessarily going to cause you that mineral water spot damage to your paint instantaneously, but it will be gradual and build up over time. If this reading is higher, so you're reading 30, 40, 50, it's pretty likely that you could cause damage to your paintwork and see those water spots within a single wash. So the level we've got here at 18, for me, I wouldn't be confident enough to use this water here to wash in direct sunlight, and I want to be very, very careful as well when washing out of direct sunlight to make sure the vehicle is dried properly, because within 4 or 5 washes we could start to see that build up. So what we'll do, we'll show you this exact same test coming out of the Alto. So we've turned this on, and by turning it on, there's actually no switch. So all we're doing is literally connecting the water inlet, which is building pressure in the system here. It roughly sits at around 80 on the gauge here. It does drop as you're using the pressure washer, but it sustains flow at a very good rate. We haven't had any issues at all with it needing to rebuild its pressure. We can just constant run this, which is great. So we know when we've got pressure in there, it's doing its thing, it's filtering that water correctly. So what we can do here is shake that out so we don't have any of that other water in there, is undo this, let a little bit of water out, and we can test this again. And we can run that same test with the TDS meter. So pop that cap back on, it on, and we're reading 0, which means that we've got great resin in there, as we should. We've only used this machine about 4 or 5 times, and it is filtering all the way to 0. So essentially, what we've got there is water that is absolutely free of mineral content, which we should be really safe to use when we're washing our car. So what we're doing here is something you don't necessarily need to do, but I think if you've got the system and you're prepared to use some of your resin toward this, is go and fill your buckets and all of your other wash equipment, including your foam cannon, with your deionized water, because what this means is that, yep, the crucial stage is your final rinse down, but this means that you can take your time through the rest of the process. You're not having to try and rush through your wash, knowing that you may incur water spots at that point. So this is where it'll be really nice to have an additional outlet on this machine, which you can get. So you can configure this machine to have up to 4 outlets. I think it's about $30 extra to add each one. So we've only got the one on here at the moment, but I think in an ideal setting you'd have 2 on here, so you could leave it connected to your pressure washer, but also have a spare one where you can fill your buckets up from. So what we'll do, we'll fill this bucket, which is our rinse, we'll fill our wash bucket, we'll fill up our foam cannon we've got sitting over here, then we'll hook it up to the machine, and we're good to do our first rinse down. Regardless of the overhead conditions, and they're absolutely beautiful today, we've got direct sunlight, this is the point of the wash where we'll be rushing. We'll be rushing to make sure, number one, the surface stays wet until we get to the point of drying it. So it's a rush, and I think it's the most stressful part of washing, and it also means you're really dictated by the weather. We're really careful around it. We would never wash in these conditions. We'd always wait until there was shade. Having this deionized system means that it does open us up to be able to wash in these settings, but you drive around any neighborhood on a sunny Saturday or Sunday and you will see people washing in this exact setting. They think sunshine, perfect conditions to wash. They'll go out and they'll do this, and they may not dry the car as well. And what you end up with is, this was not deionized water, you end up with a mess that it takes us here at Omni Garage 60, 70, 80 hours to correct the damage that can be caused in the space of, 10, 15 minutes of improper washing. So we'd normally be rushing here. I've got a little bit more rinsing to do. And again, I'd never stop to talk for 2 minutes right now. I'd be trying to fend off anyone who wants to talk to me. If a neighbor was coming down and trying to have a chat around something, you'd be going, hey, I need to do this. I know that Glenn had a couple of people stop the other day, and he was able to actually put the gun down and have a chat and not need to worry too much around how quick this process here needed to be. We wouldn't normally recommend it, but in the case of unscientific experimentation today, once we finish washing this car or rinsing the car down, we're just going to let it dry from the sun and just see what happens to the paint. And I think the bit in particular here I'm really interested to see what happens is the glass. So for those who are familiar with the channel, you'll know that we actually did a little series recently where we went and corrected all of this glass to remove pretty much all of the water spots. I'd say about 95% of the water spots have been removed from there. Saved some from the corners that we couldn't quite get to with the Nano, but we'll finish rinsing this off and then we'll set the camera up on the tripod and we might quicken up the speed a bit and just show you how this dries. It's going to be news to us because we have used this machine about 4 or 5 times, but we still go through our normal process where we get the blower out, we dry it off, we apply bead maker on top of our ceramic coating. This car here is not coated, it had bead maker on it probably about 6 weeks ago and hasn't driven a lot since. So it'll be interesting for us to see if it's a step that you potentially could cut out of your process if you had one of these machines from PureWash. So we've given it about 20 minutes and let this dry, and although the roof hasn't dried yet, we don't have a huge amount of temperature in the sun today, I think the result can be seen on the windows here. We've got virtually nothing indistinguishable on there to what it looked like prior, so no water spots in there. Really hard to see on silver paint, but nothing visible in the paint. And I mean, if it's not in the windows or the gloss black trim here, you're not going to have it on your paint. So what we'll do, we'll almost do a 50-50 comparison here. We'll get normal tap water, which we tested previously, which had about that 18 to 19 parts per million. And we'll spray this on this back window and come back in, we don't even need to leave it 20 minutes. I reckon if we leave this for 5 minutes, we'll set the camera up on the tripod again and show you the damage that you would incur from putting tap water on here versus your deionized water. So get it trickling out there. We'll just wet just this side. And you just watch the difference in about 5 minutes of that water on there.
Okay, so by no means is this a scientific test, but what you saw is we washed the car, we then rinsed it with the deionized water, and we had no water spots on both panels of glass. We didn't put any of the normal household tap water on this panel, but we did on here. And I know around here it's not all dry, but you can see in certain areas where the water has dried, it has left some markings on the glass there. Now that is typical water spot markings. This is what people will have when they're washing their car at home. Today, perfect day, nice sunny day, people will be out here cleaning their cars, they'll wash it with their normal tap water, they'll go, yep, cool, done a good as job, and then they come back and they go, oh, what's all these water spots? They do that week in, week out. And over time, those water spots will get worse and worse and worse, and those mineral deposits in that water will start to basically, they start to embed themselves deep into the clear coat of the car, and they're really hard to remove. You need to use really harsh chemicals to remove them, or you need to remove them using a polisher. And I tried to wipe some of these off just before, and they're not going to wipe off. So we might get away with wiping them off with a bit of water spot remover, but we might have to polish them out. And so people, they do that and they get lots of water spots on their car, and then they come to Omni Garage and we spend hours trying to remove it. But this is exactly why you want to be using a deioniser to remove all those mineral compounds from your water so that you are safe in washing your vehicle. And I think we've just kind of proven this in this little test that we've done here. So when we're all done, finished cleaning the car and giving it a rinse down, you just want to be super mindful that there is still pressure in the system, still pressurized. We can see here we're sitting at, I don't know, roughly about 80 psi. Now if I was to quickly disconnect this, we'd get a whole heap of blowback and it will push your arm back. Shall I show you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Fire out.
You got to step out of the way pretty quick.
And you can see all that water come out. What I recommend you do, we'll repressurize this and I'll show you what I recommend. Alright, so what I recommend is that you turn off your mains water, you turn off your pressure washer, and we can just close this system and disconnect from here. Then we can then bleed our system out. And you can see our pressure is now dropped down to, well, virtually 0 psi. Then we can disconnect our hose. And that's probably the safest way to disassemble your system, because the other way, I don't know, you could do a bit of damage.
So there's a quick overview of what it's like to use this Alto 10 in your car washing procedure. So I think key for us here, if we were to order this system again, we'd absolutely go for this unit. And the reason is 12 kilos, it's really compact. You can store this pretty easily alongside your pressure washer in your garage. I think the thing that we would do is we would go for the 2 outlets on here, because it's quite nice to be able to have this connected to your pressure washer permanently, if you like, if you have a really decent setup, and then to have a second hose on here where you can fill your buckets without needing to swap this out, disconnect it from your pressure washer. That adds $30 to the cost of this, so this is $479 as is, so that takes it to just a shade over $500, which I think to have that safeguard that you're not going to incur that water spot damage that you saw on the car just now, I think it's essential. In particular, if you have a detailing business and you don't have one of these, you absolutely need to get on board. And then you've got all of the added benefits as well. You can use this around the home, you can use this to wash windows, get that spot-free finish, just like a professional window cleaner, at a pretty economical cost. So the resin is obviously replaceable, so you can do that through PureWash. Again, depending on the inlet water quality, what you're pulling into the system, you're going to get between 4,000 to 5,000 litres of spot-free water. We're going to continue testing this. I think today this is wash number 5, maybe wash number 6, so we're going to keep an eye on the quality of the water through this machine, and we're just going to check it with that TDS meter, you know, every 4 or 5 washes to make sure we're still maintaining a 0 level of water that's coming out. So we'll no doubt come back and update you guys and let you know the actual economics of owning a machine like this and what that works out to be dollar per wash in terms of resin. But I think this is something that you want to have if you take your detailing seriously. So big thanks to PureWash for sending this Alto 10 to us to test out. We're absolutely stoked with this, and I think we will be back on the PureWash website very shortly to spec out another machine, and that next one will definitely have the 2 outlets on here. But I think from what we've seen today and our experience over the last few washes using this, you absolutely need one, and that's why we'll be picking up another one to make sure we've got it in both sides of the Omni garage, and your garage at home, my garage here. This is part of the wash setup now, and I'm looking forward to just seeing the results that we can get and opening up the options for us to wash throughout the day rather than having to really schedule it at a particular time of the day to not incur any damage. So it's a really quick wrap up of the PureWash system. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, purewash.co.nz is where you can pick one up for yourself. And until the next video, thanks for watching. See you later.